Friends, welcome to this program on researching open education resources. Basically, we'll talk about evaluation and costing. We will do a case study of a program that I also evaluated that of the Commonwealth of Learning, an OER training program called Understanding OER. It's not a MOOC, but certainly it's an online program which can be completed very quickly, and everybody is encouraged to do that, to appreciate and understand what an open education resource is all about. I will present the evaluation of that, which will be concerned with the program, the way we designed it, and finally we talked about the evaluation of the program, especially focusing on costing part of it, and especially return on investment. As you all would agree that we all have been facing the shortage of textbooks, and textbooks have been very expensive. The cost and access and frequent updates are there. There's a copyright issue, licensing, and therefore open textbooks and open publishing has come to the fore. And therefore e-books are available. One example that I have given is freemium. That's a flat world to knowledge, talks about freemium, that open access publishing, that you do it free, but side by side you buy another product or artifact of that company. But the resource would be made free both for the teachers and students. Open education resource and the need for capacity building, because there is a need to appreciate what an open education resource is, copyright, copyleft, and Creative Commons, and how to adapt open education resources at different levels, certificate, diploma, degree levels, and for diversified discipline areas. And therefore there is a need to get into appreciating and therefore understanding and going through courses and training on open education resources. This course that we are talking about is a training on open education resources, Learn OER, or in other words, Understanding OER by the Commonwealth of Learning, Vancouver, Canada. And OER and quality of student learning outcomes, reduction in cost and maintenance and student learning outcomes, open education practices and open pedagogy. These have been concerns today, and therefore starting from an open education, removing restrictions as much as possible for access and equity through an open learning process to use of open education resources, leading to open sharing, and then to open pedagogy, and finally introducing what is called an open educational practices in institutions, both colleges and both schools, colleges, and universities. I have brought in two quickly definitions of what exactly Corina Boshu and colleagues in 2014 and UNESCO 2019 they talked about. Boshu and colleagues they talked about are academics reluctant to make their contents available as OER. So therefore there is a need to appreciate and study. Are academics concerned about the quality of OER available? What are the negative perceptions that academics have towards OER? Time consuming, maybe hard to find resources, low quality of the resources maybe. What type of skills and knowledge are required by individuals in order to take advantage of open educational practices? And therefore these are concerns which need to be investigated. UNESCO in 2019 revised the draft recommendation on OER, because you would recall UNESCO in 2002 coined the word open educational resources. In 2019 they revised the guidelines to be adopted by UNESCO General, and which might have been done. They had 5 objectives. Building capacity of stakeholders to create, access, use, and adopt and redistribute OERs. Developing supportive policy institutionally, possible national policy. Encouraging inclusive and equitable quality of OER, which is very important when you use it or remix it or adapt the OERs to your courses. Nurturing the creation of sustainability models of OER, because the business model to sustain OER, because somebody is paying to create OER, though others are using OER as free. But then in the process there must be balance that investment and cost as well as benefits should be equal. Otherwise somebody is going on spending and becomes very expensive, that the spending is more than what is being benefited. So therefore this study is all about that, and this is called a return on investment, ROI. That's what we would talk about. Facilitating international cooperation, of course. The research areas, and especially the document that I am referring to is by Hilton, Wiley, David Wiley, and Fisher and Allen. This is guidelines to research and open educational resources adoption. I have provided the URL. It is an open source document declared under Creative Commons, and therefore you can download and use it. And this document I thought is a very useful, which will be talking about policy, cost, student outcomes, course throughput, dropout, persistence, and so on and so forth. Enrollment intensity and persistence, student faculty use, perception of open education resources, because student and faculty perception are very important. Open education practices and open pedagogy. So these are the areas they have suggested that we should talk about in terms of open. So when we go for open educational resources, we have taken into consideration some of these areas which are very crucial to OER. So Learn OER, the course that we are talking about of the Commonwealth of Learning, this is a training through online learning. In 2011, the Commonwealth of Learning became the first intergovernmental organization to adopt an OER policy. And in 2012, both Commonwealth of Learning and UNESCO organized the first World OER Congress. In 2015, development and promotion of OER became a priority in their strategic plans. And in fact, CEOL has been supporting various activities relating to OER and have supported educational institutions and countries to develop policies, including in India. Quite a few state open universities have developed OER policies, and the National Open University is also into developing a full-fledged vis-a-vis the national education policy. So IGNOU is also going to develop a very articulate and develop a very comprehensive OER policy, including digital resources, the e-learn course, and so on and so forth. In 2017, the Commonwealth of Learning also released a global report on OER, analyzing the developments in the field. The URL is given there for your reference. Learn OER, in 2015 they started it. It was a platform in an HTML, and anybody could get into that and understand and learn. And the Commonwealth of Learning commissioned to develop an OER on OER. So this is an OER on OER, to learn OER through OER using already available information on the topic. Once a print version was ready, they developed an online version of its use, truly open course without any need for logging in and password. Anybody can access that. However, slowly this became an important in reporting to call, as the data was only available on users, not exactly on the completion. So people are getting into, and the completion data, those who are passing out, we never knew about that. At this stage, it was decided to update this course and develop an HTML5 version, and using Flash and delivered through the Model Learning Management System (LMS). The current version was based on the current HTML5 technology. So therefore, in August 2018, it was launched, and therefore the data that will be presenting for a few years, and because the evaluation was done in 2020. So the report is available, and all these references given below in this PowerPoint could be useful to you. This is our return on investment and a return on expectation framework. We considered return on investment, especially the Kilpatrick model, and quite a few others we considered. And we added to that the return on expectation, because if you take a return on investment, it becomes very quantitative, and therefore there are some qualitative aspects that we would like to join in with the quantitative. So return on investment would also include, in our case, a return on expectations. So return on investment is the net project program benefit divided by the program costs multiplied by 100. This will be the final outcome that we will see whether this course has been a higher return on investment or not. So we consider 5 points that is written on the screen. First, reaction and planned action. These are measures that the participants or the graduate satisfaction and subsequent planned activities that they will take in their own organization relating to training, education, business, and so on and so forth. NGOs and schools and colleges and universities. Number 2, learning and confidence. To what extent these are the measures to find out the resultant changes in the knowledge, attitude, and skills of the graduates. We have considered this point number 2. Point number 3, we have also considered behavior and application and implementation. These are the measures that the process of implementation and impact on behavior at workplaces, actually when they go to implement after the course completion. Results in the business impact, which measures the changes in the business or institutional operations, if at all it is contributing to reduction in the use of textbooks or self-learning materials and more OER are being used, and so on and so forth. All these, and finally, return on investment. This is the benefit to the cost. And all these will be quantified and all these will be related to, because if somebody is using OER, reducing the textbooks or self-learning materials, then certainly one is saving money. And that is also considered as part of the income or part of the savings, which will be considered in the calculation of return on investment. So we had these 4 broad research questions. What are the participant reactions to the quality of the online course, Learn OER or Understanding OER? Number 2, what are the participant reactions to online course based on the OER? So first one is the quality of the course. The second one is the varieties of aspects that we will discuss of the online course itself. Number 3, to what extent the participants have been empowered by the course, and in what ways do they propose to use the gain in knowledge and skills in their own organization or institution. And finally, what are the institutional and participant costs? So institutional cost and private cost. In a way, for calculation of a unit cost, in this case we have taken global calculation, and one can also calculate unit cost based on that, on offer of the online course, and what benefits and returns are derived in comparison to the cost involved. So these have been our 4 major research questions that we investigated. Our methodology, this involved an online survey of graduates of the online course, and to find out, number 1, a rough sense of return on investment or return on expectations by ascertaining the actual expenses by the participants and their perceived estimate of the value of the course certification if it is offered as a paid course, because this was not a paid course, this was free of cost, as also the money spent by the implementing agency, that is the Commonwealth of Learning, in the design, development and delivery of this online course. And finally, this will be the benefits derived by the graduates of the course and their actual implementation at their workplace. So these have been, as much as been possible, quantified, but also simultaneously some qualitative dimensions have also been added to that to bring in or finally arrive at what is called a return on investment, which would include therefore a return on expectations. The research design, population and sample. The population for this study comprised of all those who had completed the course successfully. This was till 2019. About 4,079 users from 64 countries had registered, of which 1,419 had completed. And therefore, we sent our online questionnaire to all 1,419 graduates, course completers who were contacted online. And finally, a few open-ended questions were given with a questionnaire. Finally, a total of 127 completed responses were received, and therefore response rate was almost 90% of those who had graduated of this course. This is the course status, that almost out of all those total, those who had not started about 33%, those who had completed 35%, and in fact those who had attempted but failed 10%, and those who are doing for quite some time, though it takes shorter period of time to do that. Well, people would like to go through videos carefully and a whole lot of resources that are uploaded, that will take time, and therefore they are in progress, almost 22% of those who had admitted to the course. The instruments that we used, an attitude scale of 18 statements of a 5-point Likert type of scale, and a questionnaire associated with that. A whole lot of open-ended questions were also there. These 3 variables were involved to study the OER itself, the accuracy, relevance, accessibility, quality, engagement, and licensing of the OER itself. 2, the learning platform, the online learning, curriculum and course design, ease of comprehension, instructional design, adequate content, technology design, assessment rubric, and finally, return on investment and return on expectations, their reaction, their learning, their behavior, their results, and their investment or expectation. So we take investment as well as expectation together in this case. So 5 areas that we finally settled: reaction and planned action, which is participants' satisfaction and subsequent planned action. 2, learning and confidence, that measures resulted changes in knowledge, attitude, and skills. 3, the behavior, application, and implementation in their own organization. So the measures, that process of implementation and impact on behavior at workplaces. Results and business impact, which measures the changes in institutional operations. And finally, return on investment, which measures the benefit to the cost, and which will include, from our point of view, the return on expectations also. So this is the framework that we followed open education resources, accuracy, relevance, accessibility, quality, engagement, interaction, and finally licensing. Online learning, course design, curriculum design, ease of comprehension, adequate content, instructional design, technology design, and assessment rubric, and finally return on investment, reaction, learning, behavior, result, and expectation or investment / expectation. So this is our matrix, cost analysis matrix that we followed. The online course, curriculum, teaching, learning, technical aspects, return on expectations, reaction, learning and behavior, and return on investment, time and cost. That is the dollar value if paid course, dollar value of present OER work that they are doing, and time saved due to course on OER, and time converted into the dollar value. 2, the institutional cost, and 3, the private or what is called an individual cost. And these all would be contributing to what we would call as an impact of that. So first, friends, the first thing is the time taken to complete the course, that less than 90 minutes, 90 to 120 minutes, and more than 180 minutes. This is how you find on your screen that almost 32% took 3 hours to 4 hours to complete at a time in one go, and followed by almost 6 hours, 3 hours, 180 minutes. So 1.5 hours to 2 hours is 32% or 0.20%. So followed by 3 hours and so on and so forth. And less than 90 minutes, you see almost 15.25% of the participants completed, though it was intended more hours given to complete the course, but they completed with less than 1.5 hours, less than 90 minutes. Attempt for course completion, the first attempt to 10th attempt. So as you will see that it is evenly distributed. Some people who completed at the first attempt, and there are some who even took 10 attempts to complete that. That would simply mean they are not sitting through the course at one go, but at different spells they could complete this. These are the findings of the attitude scale for 18 areas that we had given. You will study in detail because this is available to you, and you could also download the report from the Commonwealth of Learning website, a full report of longer pages, and you can study in detail. But I made certain things red because they are the values out of a 5-point scale, 1 to 5. Number 1 is 4.58, number 2 4.51, number 3 is 4.49, and so on and so forth. And the last one, 18th one, is 4.54. That would simply mean that everything is more than 4 because they are more than halfway through. They are almost 75%, and almost everything is more than 75%. So those which are more than 4.5, I have made them red, and you would realize that these are the very serious concerns of the 18 aspects of the attitude, that their reaction. But all the 18 put together would indicate that they has a very strong positive reaction to the course. So the attitude results are given here. If I read out some of these after going through the online course, I'm satisfied to have gained sufficient knowledge on OER. The way the content was presented helped me to perform better in the final assessment, and so on and so forth, that you can study, read yourself. These are reflection of the attitude score that I presented in the last PowerPoint, and the mean average is 4.54 and standard deviation is 0.05 to 0.06, which is very good, and this indicates that they have been quite favorable and have gained a lot from the course itself. The results also, best aspects of the online course, licensing and IP knowledge was given, additional resources were, in fact it was full of additional very authentic resources you will find. The course and especially the tutorials are very interactive, and so on and so forth. The planning and execution of the online course was well done. The certificate and recognition from an international organization is very much appreciated by them. What they liked the least, more and varied examples of OER were needed. So therefore, this was one aspect which could be looked into more seriously. More clarity on instructions for the games designed in between of the courses. So therefore, this could be done. There were too many textual reading materials, and therefore they were suggesting that if they could be related to those aspects and highlighted what best they could do. Value obtained and time spent, it is in front of you. Course satisfaction, nearly 78% were highly satisfied. Enhancement of knowledge, skills and attitude, more than 64%. Skills, and 42% they gained the actual skill. they reported increase to a larger extent and so on and so forth. Current OER activities based on this course that they are doing, they're developing modules, they're developing online courses, they're developing, improving OER repositories, institutional. In teacher education, they are doing a lot of micro teaching, nano teaching. There's a research on ODL and research papers on OER they have published based on these knowledge. Development of MOOCs, the MOOC courses that they are doing. TVET, technical vocational education and training they have been doing, and OER based training that themselves are also undertaking based on what they learned from this, and maybe including their own experiences adding to that to enrich the course that they are offering. That increased in efficiency. On the question of efficiency, almost 42% they said it was highly increased, and the quality of work, almost 49% said that they are highly improved. Time saved because of OER in their own organization or institution or business organization, school, college or university. As you see here, from 1 to 10 hours that they have saved, you could see that almost 5% they have 10 hours saving done in a week that by the use of OER. So this is a good indication that which contributed to their work. Impact on their future work, that online course development, increase in knowledge and skills, confidence development, development of courses on the Moodle platform that they will be doing, enhancement of quality. Their institutions are going for OER, they are also developing policy for their institution, and finally, and a whole lot of that you will read, and finally, there is always resistance to change, but my organization already took a bold step by sharing materials with learners. So sharing as part of the open education resource, it is an international concern that sharing of resources, getting resources to use by yourself and sharing your resources for others, and therefore to declare under Creative Commons, and therefore that becomes an open education resource. Dollar value if paid course, so we reached almost 52% responded to this. That $50, if it was, then certainly almost $200, 10% reported the fees to be $200. So 50 to 200, so you could pitch in anywhere. If you take the lowest one is the $50, then certainly this is the saved money, because if this was a paid course, then at least $50 one had to pay up to $200. Value of new OER activities that over the old one that they have been doing in their own organization, which contributed to almost $51, the highest being 88 and the lowest being 11. So per unit is 51 that they could do because of OER, they are saving. And time saving, that almost over 5%, as I said, 10 hours a week that they have been saving. So therefore, if you convert that into money saving, a whole lot of saving that they are doing in terms of time. So finally, friends, to come to the conclusion that individual additional expenses, some people spend something like $200 US dollar because of internet connection and all kinds of things, and $10 to $25 that they spent. Very few reacted to this. I think 2 or 3 they reacted. 9 responses we received, and 2 noted 50 each spending on that. So expenditure by Commonwealth of Learning, Canadian dollar 5,700. Interactive course, making an interactive 14,000 and so on and so forth. So the total, the Commonwealth of Learning spent 44,577 Canadian dollar, which is converted to US dollar 33,974. So these put together, that the unit cost for registered participant works out to be at 10.9 Canadian dollar or 8.3 US dollar. So therefore, if we put all together, as a return on impact is a high impact, but return on investment we finally calculated, and we reached a point that US dollar 120,302, which yields a return on investment of 354, which is a very high side. So therefore, and this return on investment takes into consideration the return on expectations. Considering an increase in the value of current OER work of US dollar 50 per unit, that is 72,000 total for all, that is 1,419 successful participants, vis-a-vis the money spent by the Commonwealth of Learning, that is 33,974 US dollar, which yields a return on investment of 212. So the first one was returning an investment of 354, but if you take all these into consideration, certainly it is 2.42% for the Learn OER. So therefore, the conclusion that is in front of you in a graphic form, that the online course, these have been the results. the return on expectations, these have been the results, and midpoint box below is the return on investment, and finally it is leading to impact, and therefore this shows a high impact and high return on investment. Final analysis that based on the overall collected indicators for online course and so on and so forth, the institutional unit cost was very low at $23 only. So while the Learn OER course that we have discussed has resulted in 212% of return on investment from the perspective of the benefits occurred to the learners, the return on investment for the Commonwealth of Learning is still higher at 254% based on the cost involved so far in offering the course and average value of the course estimated by the learners. So the overall return on investment or return on expectation can be considered as a very good investment made by Commonwealth of Learning to justify the value for money. So friends, final analysis that you will read out what institutions need to do, some recommendations have been given, what faculty need to do, some recommendations have been given. Even if there is an economic value, there are certain other aspects while going through the course, the OER, online learning, and return on investment. All three put together, these recommendations that the faculty and the institutions should consider for an effective implementation of OER policy and OER practice in their institution. So thank you very much, and this has been, I hope this has been an interesting discussion. Based on this, you would conduct studies on OER, especially on return on investment further. Thank you very much.